The Chicago Bulls have done what they've done best, and that's created a gluttony of guards. On today's episode, I want to do a prediction on which guards stay and go for the Chicago Bulls and how that directly goes hand in hand with something I think the Bulls are going to have to decide on in the NBA draft in 2026, which also is going to be between a lot of guards in that 8 to 10 range for the Chicago Bulls. We'll talk about why that is and what the Chicago Bulls can do about their guard glut this offseason. We'll talk about all that, plus dive into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off this one talking about the Chicago Bulls and the guards that we have here, right? Because something needs to be done. Now, most of these guys probably aren't going to stay, and I'm going to talk about the reasons why and how that goes into the draft. I think the overall guard decision for the Chicago Bulls this offseason is going to come down to what happens in the draft. I think that is the first and foremost thing, right? But we're going to talk about these guys. So I want to look at the guards that we brought in. First off, Collin Sexton. So far for the Chicago Bulls, he's played 11 games. He's had 3 starts. He's averaging 25 minutes per game, 15 points per game, 2.2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. He's shooting the ball 47% from the field, 33% from the field, and from 3, and 82% from the free throw line. He's been really solid for the Chicago Bulls. And as a bench guard, he's been basically exactly what you want as a scorer that can still facilitate some, and his vocality, right? That's something that we lacked on this team, and he brought that literally since the trade went down. When the Bulls, had all these new pieces, and we were missing so many of our pieces, and the Bulls needed some type of leadership for a team that just had not played together. Collin Sexton brought that basically immediately for the Chicago Bulls and didn't look back on it. And I respect him for that, right? Like, because he saw something that was needed. As a veteran, he came in here and he did that. We've seen him bend that with Modest Buzelis, which is always important when you're able to do stuff like that with Modest, and because of Modest and who he is on this team going forward into the future and stuff like that. So it's been really good to see that from Collin Sexton. But I want to be clear here. As much as I love Collin Sexton and what he's been able to bring to this Bulls team, let's be clear here. There are going to be a lot of teams looking for scoring guards that know exactly who they are, and that is going to be Collin Sexton. And so while I do think the Bulls will and should try to keep him here on the bench, depending on what they do elsewhere, and the money matters. He's getting paid almost $19 million right now. I don't think he's going to get that on the free agent market. But at 27 years old, you know exactly who Collin Sexton is. And while some Bulls fans say that as a negative, I want somebody like that on my bench, especially considering the youth we're probably going to have everywhere else. But again, I think teams are going to make some big offers for him. And, if Collin Sexton returns to Chicago, it's going to be because he believes in what the Bulls have either sold him or they're building here. And he looks at it and says, hey, I've moved around enough. I can be in one of the greatest cities in the world and be in Chicago and accomplish some of my goals. So we'll see what happens there. Anfernee Simons. So far, 6 games played for the Chicago Bulls, 5 of those being starts. He's averaged 28 minutes per game, 15 points, almost 3 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 44% from the field, 32% from 3, and 100% from the free throw line as a Chicago Bull specifically. He is a talented scorer and a player that was on that Boston Celtics team after being on Portland for so long, and he fit in. His numbers took a big hit, what he did at Portland versus what he did in Boston, but he was winning, and he was contributing to winning. And I just don't think he's going to be somebody who wants to stay in Chicago unless Chicago somehow lucks up and builds a team that Anfernee Simons looked at and said, oh no, we can go far, which isn't likely. I think it's going to be safe to say Anfernee Simons is probably going to join a contender, may even go back to Boston on a much cheaper deal than what other places can offer him, but he may focus on winning. And we'll see what happens with that one. The Bulls, of course, can offer him the most money, but I do think the Bulls are going to have to renounce his rights. More on that here in a second, and that's what I think there. Next up, Jaden Ivey. 4 games, 3 starts for the Chicago Bulls, 28 minutes per game, 11.5 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game. Like, the numbers aren't terrible for Jaden Ivey. But when you watch the game, you see that Jaden Ivey just does not trust himself, and therefore, how can you trust it, right? Breaking the fibula, was a thing that was huge, but most players make 100%. I keep going back to that. Most players have 100% recovery from that one. He's a restricted free agent this summer. He's only 24 years old. He still has tons of potential, even if he just gets back to what he was in the 2024-25 season before he went down with that injury. I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to be on a very cost-effective contract. I've made the comparisons before. It's going to be somewhere between Ayo's extension and Coby's extension when they were restricted free agents. With Ayo got $8.5, $9 million, Coby got 12, right? So I think it's going to be somewhere between that offer. But depending on what the Bulls do in the draft, I can see Jaden Ivey coming back, and the Bulls taking a calculated short-term risk on Jaden Ivey to see. It may be a 1+1. It may be a 2+1 as far as the option in the last year, but I do think they're going to give it another go to see if Jaden Ivey can get over the mental hurdle, because I still think that's the biggest thing there for him. It's the mental aspect of it. And then lastly, Rob Dillingham. Listen, I'm going to bury the lead here. Rob Dillingham's going to be back because he's a cheap contract on a rookie scale deal. And I'm going to say this, there still is a lot of upside there with Rob Dillingham. The thing with it, though, is that we know not all upside actually turns into realized talent. Hey, Patrick Williams looking at you. So I'm not saying that Rob Dillingham's going to stay here and is going to end up making a big difference, or he's going to end up turning to some great player for the Bulls. But when you look at the Bulls, what they need to do and how they need to spend money elsewhere, restricted free agency, stuff like that, I just don't see a place where they look at a cheap contract like Rob Dillingham and they don't bring him back, especially with the youth and the upside that's there as well. He's averaged 19.3 minutes per game, 6.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.2 steals per game, shooting the ball only 38% from the field, 17% from three, and 79% from the free throw line. Again, not hugely encouraging numbers, but money does talk in the NBA. That's what I think. So to recap, I think Rob Dillingham stays. I think he's the only guarantee to stay. I do think Jaden Ivey can stay as well, depending on what we do in the draft. And then Simons and Collin Sexton, I think both those guys are gone, but I do think the Bulls are going to make a play to try to keep one of those guys, but I don't think ultimately it's going to end up working out. How does this tie into the draft, though, right? In the NBA, the draft comes before free agency, and that is what I want to look at real quick here. The Bulls are slated, they're most likely going to pick between 8 and 10, right? That's the most likely place. Of course, with lottery luck, we can go into the top 5. We can maybe catch the Dallas Mavericks at the 7th seed, but that's going to take basically losing out. As you see, the Bulls probably aren't going to do that. So when you look at the players that are most likely projected, and I'm looking at a bunch of different mocks, don't come to me and say, well, Haize, on such mock, the Bulls, this player's actually slated to go 5th. Don't start with that, because I'm taking a algorithm look at multiple mocks and where these players are slated. So when you combine most mocks, the players that are slated to go between 8 and 10 are Keaton Wagler, Darius Acuff, Mikael Brown, LeBaron Fillion, and Nate Emmett. Those are the most common players to go fall around the 8 to 10 spot, depending on where you look at the draft. My preferred draft is NBADraft.net. I do also look at Tankathon. I do also look at, the running thing that the Ringer does as well. But, when you look at Draft Express, all these places, those are the most common players to fall between that area. Doesn't mean that that's going to happen. A team could reach. Draft position is also going to make a change in that. And the reason why I want to focus on this, so there are a couple of factors in this. The NCAA tournament is going to change this. Then also, once we know the draft order, that's going to change as well, because different teams need different things, right? So it leaves the Bulls with 2 different options. They can go best player available, regardless of position, with where they draft at. I don't necessarily hate that. I think with where the Bulls roster is, you have a lot of flexibility in positions, so you can go best player available, and it makes sense. Best player available, consider the high floor as well as the ceiling, which is what I want AK to do, right? So I don't think that's a bad option. Or if the Bulls do look at this and say, we want to target a big man or a position, they can trade down. Trading up is also a possibility. I think that's going to be a little bit more difficult in this draft with how deep the draft is, but it doesn't mean that it's off the table. Trading up, trading down is still an option for the Chicago Bulls, right? What AK does there is going to tell me a lot, not only how he feels about the talent, but also how he feels about the roster construction. If AK is willing to trade down, which you could possibly do, but then you can get a position that you need, but then there's a possibility that you pass up on a player that'll be the better overall player because you focused on position, right? That's what AK has to do. And if he really believes in some things, that's usually when you see a team be willing to do that a little bit more, they'll take the chance on going after position in need and maybe overlooking a better player at a position they don't need. I don't know if the Bulls are in a position to do that, but it'll tell us a lot what AK does, right? So those are the players that are kind of the most slated. And all those guys are guards except Nate Emmett. He's the only player that's on that list that's not a guard. Everybody else is a guard. Now, how they're going to play and where they're playing the NBA, a lot of those guys are listed as point guards. Some are slated to be more shooting guards or scoring guards at the next level. I still think that can fit with Josh Giddey, but Nate Emmett is the one player in that area that's projected that's not a guard. Otherwise, it's a lot of guards. That's why I think that the Bulls and this plethora of guards that they ended up with after the trade deadline, it may not matter long term, right? But okay, let's say best case scenario, Nate Emmett falls to you there at number 8 or 9, wherever the Bulls are going to pick at, and they also view him as the best player available, which it could be that it's very well how that could work out. But who are the players that the Bulls could trade down for? Haynes Steinbrück, the power forward out of Washington, Patrick Ngagba, the center out of Duke, Yaxo Lindenberg, the center out of Michigan, or Jaden Quintessence, the power forward out of Kentucky. Those are the players that may be the most enticing for the Bulls to trade down for. Again, I didn't say that in an order of importance or anything like that. I just threw out the names as best they can, but that's kind of what you're looking at right now. Now, all of this is all kind of for not now, and the reason why I say that is this draft board is going to change, and it's going to change 3 different times. A, it's going to change after the NCAA tournament. It's going to change again after the NBA lottery. Right after that happens, you know exactly where teams are going to pick. And then it'll change again at the draft combine. So this is still a living thing to where it can very well go. Like, for example, Patrick Ngagba, the center out of Duke, right now by a lot of mocks is slated to go between like 11 and 13. If he has a great draft combine and teams start looking at it and say, hey, there's some things he didn't do in Duke we think he can do at the NBA level, you're going to see him rise up some draft boards, right? So it's those type of things that you want to look at and that you have to play. And that's why, you know, in the summer we do a lot of different mocks, a lot of different lists as far as tiers of players because of how that can go. But we are going to start gearing out. I'm going to wait. I want to get heavy into my draft bag now. I'm going to force myself to wait till at least the end of March. So April, we'll start looking at some draft prospects a little bit more heavily for the Bulls. But that's just, I wanted to prep that because there's a real possibility that if the Bulls go best player available at where they're slated to draft at, that means taking a guard. And not to say that that's necessarily bad, as we don't have a long-term backcourt mate with Josh Giddey anymore, but, you know, you got to kind of fit those pieces together, and we'll see how that ends up working out. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Which guards stay, which guards go, and then what would you do with where the Bulls are slated to draft right now, and we'll see how that thing is going to work out. With that said, it is Sunday. That means it is Mailbag Day. Let's get into these voicemails, man. This first one that we're going to jump into, this one's from Brian Washington.
Yo, what up, Haize? This is Brian Washington from the West Side. Hey, I want to say one thing real quick. The big men that we have right now, I like these big men. They play harder than the big man has ever played in the past years. These young guys, they play hard. I like them. I like them a lot. Added with Jalen Smith, and I'll still go out and get me a solid big man. But I would try to keep these guys. And Zach Collins too, but I know somebody probably would have to go, one of those players. But definitely keep Jalen Smith and a couple, and Buzelis. I don't know if I said his name right, but I like the way they play. They play hard, man. That's all we be looking for out of Patrick Williams and the other big guys. You know what I'm saying? They play hard, and that's what we need right there. I like these big guys. And I hope the Bulls just figure everything out over the summer, man, and get this team right. You know what I'm saying? Get this team on track and get some more hard-working players, you know, and some players that really want to be here. Because, you know, there's going to be a lot. They're going to go out and get these players that's going to go for the money. But I want the players that actually really want to play here. Fuck the money. Do you really want to be here? Do you want to play in the Chicago Bulls uniform? Do you want to play under them 6 titles? You know what I'm saying? That's hanging up. That's what matters, man. Do you want to be here? A lot of players go for the money because of the contracts and all that, but do they really want to be here? And those are players that play hard. They want to be here and want to make some of themselves. But I like these big guys. I really do. They play hard. They play real hard, and I like it. But that's all, man. Have a good one. Be great.
Bulls seem to be planning to go after a free agent center hard. It seems like that based off the rumors that we've heard and things like that. And so I doubt all these guys come back, as you said. Now, I do think, and I've said this before, I think one of Nick Richards or Zach Collins is going to stay on as the backup center. I think that's going to be the case here because I do think the Bulls are going to go heavy after a center in restricted free agency, whether it's Mark Williams or whether it's Walker Kessler, whoever it ends up being. Jalen Smith is earned his role, and he's better at power forward with this team. Him and Modest as the 3 and the 4 have been really good. The Bulls were, I think, the second or third best rim protection team with Jalen at the 4 and Modest Buzelis at the 3. Something to be said at there, especially when you look at as well Noah Essengate eventually projecting to be what we think he's going to be able to be. So, we'll see what happens there, but I don't think we keep both Collins and Nick Richards if we go after a center heavily, like I think we will in restricted free agency. But Brian, we'll see. Like you said, I like Nick Richards too for what he is, what he plays for, and what his role is. Backup big, he's pretty solid in that area. There's some people who like to bring up his motor a little bit, and if it's consistent there, and I understand that, but overall, I like Nick Richards too a lot. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Doug.
Hey, Haize, this is Doug. I know I'm late for the mailbox, but today's episode got me thinking about their roster for next year. The Bulls currently have roughly $93 million of their current roster under contract. And if I Googled everything right, that puts them just over $60 million under the salary cap. Could the Bulls potentially sign both Peyton Watson and Walker Kessler in restricted free agency for $28, say $30 million a piece, because that would still keep them under the salary cap, and then still be able to re-sign guys like Jaden Ivey and Nick Richards, as well as pay our guaranteed first-round pick that we have and the really high second-round pick that we're going to have, and stay under the luxury tax. If so, that would give us a starting 5 of, say, Josh Giddey, Watson, Buzelis, Smith, and Kessler, with Jones, or probably top 10 first-round pick that's probably going to be a guard because there's so many projected to go in the top 10. Okoro, Essengate, the high top 3 second-round pick that's probably going to be a center just because we need a center, and there's a lot of centers around where that pick is slated to go. Ivey, Richards, Will, Dillingham, Leonard Miller, if we pick up that option. Is a roster like that next year possible? And could that be what the front office maybe has planned? Let me know what you think.
Could the Bulls sign both Peyton Watson and Walker Kessler, or I'll even throw in Mark Williams because that's the other center that the rumor to go after in restricted free agency? And yeah, technically they can. So what you looked up as far as when you try to calculate cap space, you're not taking into account cap holds. So even when a player is a free agent on your team, you still have a cap hold for them until they either sign with another team, you re-sign them at a different number, or you renounce their rights. So to get to that optimal version of the cap space that you mentioned, the Bulls are going to have to renounce rights on both Collin Sexton and Anfernee Simons. Now, that is not something that I'm saying they won't necessarily do, but that's how they open up the most cap space to really have flexibility to put these restricted offer sheets out. And that is what they could do. They can do that, right? That would mean that they are basically saying they're not going to bring either one of those guys back, and they're going to more so focus on that restricted free agent. So it's possible that they do that. Likely, I don't know. Right now, if they do, great. But I don't think the Bulls and how they spend, and this is why I've been saying that depending on the position they draft in the draft, that's what's going to be. So if they draft a guard and a wing, or a 2 or a 3, I don't think they go after Peyton Watson. I think at that point they put their money in the restricted free agent basket and fill out the bench a little bit more naturally. That's what I think would happen. But again, if AK really wants to go all in and have a big splash, do it both. And so we'll see. Like the Jaden Ivey decision is going to be difficult too because he has a cap hold and a qualifying offer that you'd have to extend there. We'll see how that ends up happening. So, we'll see. But it's going to have to take AK moving diligently and with purpose, basically since once free agency opens. And we'll start seeing what he has planned with how those dominoes end up falling there. But great voicemail there, Doug. Let's get into this next one, man. This one's from the 312.
Yo, what's good, Haize? I just wanted to talk about the upcoming draft real quick, It's not going to be a long message or anything, but the upcoming draft, I see a lot of mocks have the Bulls taking Keaton Wagler from Illinois, and I just have an opinion on that because I've watched every single game of Keaton Wagler's Illini career. I'm a big Illini fan. I watch every single Illinois game. So I've watched this kid since, I remember watching the first game that they played against it was a buy-in game. So it was a random lower Division I school. And I didn't know who this kid was because Brad Underwood never starts freshmen. He never starts freshmen.
let alone a freshman that's 160 pounds and weak as hell. Like muscular-wise. He can hoop, though. But it's hard for freshmen to start under Brad Underwood. So when he did that, I already knew the kid he was kind of nice. And then when the game started to slow, I saw the way he was playing. This kid had a shot. The way he was driving to the rim, he has this one potent move. Every player has their superpower, right? This is Keaton's superpower. Dribble, dribble, dribble. He will drive to the free throw line extended. He will drive to the free throw line, and he will half spin. And off of that half spin, he creates so many shots. He can do a step through and a shot, a floater. His mid-range shot is there. He can do it all. That's his superpower. That mid-range spin, go and watch his highlights. That's his move. But yeah, I love Keaton Wagler to play next to Giddey. I think Keaton Wagler is like a more younger, a higher ceiling player than what Coby was. So just imagine Keaton Wagler being Coby White's replacement. I think that's a nice piece to have. But other than that, I just hope we draft like a big. Like there's a lot of underrated bigs in college. Just go to Florida. They have a lot of 7 foot guys who just block shots for days. Just go to Florida and pick one of those guys up, dude. Getting a big should not be hard. Like get somebody that can block, catch lobs from Giddey like Richards did the other day, and just do the simple things. Keep it simple. But I'm out, Haize. Appreciate you. Love the channel. Keep doing your thing.
I love Keaton Wagler. I think it really comes down to will he be there at 8 to 10 for the Bulls. Now it comes down to this, and this is where the draft board is now before the lottery. Will he get past the Hawks, the Mavs, and the Grizzlies? That's the question that you have to ask. Is will he get past those guys? The Hawks, they could be looking for a 2 guard, or they could be willing to play him at the 1 because he's an on-ball scorer and maybe he can do that. They can feel like he can balance with Jalen there. It really depends on the position they do. The Mavs, I think they're going to be more focused on an actual point guard to help set up Cooper Flagg. They need guards down there. It's one of their biggest needs. The Grizzlies, I think, have their 2 guard in Cedric Coward. The question is, do they move Ja Morant this offseason, and then do they want a different point guard? That's going to be the question there. If they can make it past those 3 teams, I think that he could be on the board there for the Chicago Bulls, but we'll see. The Hawks are the wild card, I would say, in that. The Hawks are really the wild card. So yeah, and I think and that's at 6, right? And also the Jazz there at 5. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. I don't think they take a scorer like Wagler with having Ace Bailey. So it's really the Hawks at 6, the Mavs at 7, the Memphis Grizzlies at 8, and then the Bulls would be there at number 9. Can he get past those teams? If he does, I do think he's somebody that the Bulls definitely could take a look at for sure. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? It's Shay. Look, I'm going to just say this, and you are definitely going to agree with it. Billy Donovan is like that body part that just keeps turning green, and it keeps getting affected. You try to do all of it. You try to give it medicine. You try to do all this to save it. But at some point, you just got to amputate that damn body part. Look, I know me making this voicemail won't change a damn thing, but I'm here to say this. We can try to fix this roster up as long as we want to. We can try to get new personnel, whatever, but at some point in time, we're going to have to move on from Billy Donovan. Because I know for a fact that this team will not get any better. Because if you are stuck at a certain part, and not to mention you're in the East, and you don't know how to take the next step, meanwhile, everybody has gotten new coaches, you're going to stay the same. What's how that quote go? The more things change, the more they stay the same. That will be the perfect example of the Chicago Bulls if we change personnel and keep having Billy Donovan on this team. That's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Most likely Billy Donovan isn't going anywhere. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, we'll see what happens there, but the most likely scenario is Billy Donovan's not going anywhere. Between his relationship with ownership, his relationship with AK, the Bulls, I know I talked about on my episode yesterday, like that's one of the things I would love to see AK really evaluate if that's what's best for the team moving forward. But I highly doubt anything's going to change there. He's more than likely going to be the coach next season. I'm not saying that as like something that I think is the best case scenario, but just a foregone reality. Billy Donovan will probably be back next year. And not to say that I think that he should, but he probably will be back next year. All right, let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, Haize. This is Reginald. I'm calling about, I will really discuss the current team because I don't know who's going to be on that team when it all comes down. But for me, I wouldn't mind if Simons returns to the Bulls, especially if you want to start giving him like a 4-year, $120 million deal. I think he easily lives up to it. But I think he's going to want a ring and not just a payday. And that's exactly what he deserves to get because of just how talented he is and how much effort he plays with. As for who the Bulls should draft, if the Bulls are, in the 8th spot or worse, from 8 to like 12, I want them to get Yasso Lindbergh. I know a lot of Bulls fans are going to say, he's 24. I don't care. He's got the fundamentals down pat. He can rebound. He can block. He can run the court easy. And he can make his shots, whether they be jumpers or close to the rim, things that, we desperately need. He's not the center that a lot of us want, but he is a power forward that we can plug and play right away. As for Patrick Williams, you got to buy him out. There's no point holding on to him for 3 years. And yeah, it's going to hurt, that haircut, but we've seen guys like Dame Lillard get bought out, so just go ahead and bite the bullet. He's not going, no one's trading for him, even as a salary dump. But what do you think with Yasso Lindbergh being on this team? Oh, and one last thing. What free agent would you want to get now that money isn't an option? Like, who would be the best player to play with me? Thanks.
All right, so here's the thing, right? I don't mind Yaxo. I actually like Yaxo, but I don't think at 8. I think that the Bulls would have to trade down to get him, and we'll see if they do that, but I don't think Yaxo's going to be there. The Bulls will take him at 8 or 9. That's just my personal opinion. But we'll see, right? We'll see what's going to happen there. But as far as buying out P. Will, there's zero chance they buy out P. Will. Even you going to the Dame Lillard, like, that was a team that was desperate, and there's a reason why that never happened before, and it was the largest one. The Bulls aren't going to buy out P. Will with 3 years left on his deal. We're just too cheap of a team. We're not going to do that. And he's not, and unless the Bulls get into this offseason where they look at it and say, hey, listen, we really need that money back from P. Will. Let's buy him out and see how much. But they'd have to give up so much money because P. Will has no reason to agree to a buyout. Keep in mind, a player has to agree to a buyout at that number. Otherwise, you're buying them out for the full length of the full cost of their contract. And that's not going to happen, right? So that's fake news. There's zero chance that P. Will's bought out. Zero chance. What would I do in free agency, though? That really comes down to what we do in the draft. I really can't answer, and I don't mean to cop out on your answer. I can't answer that until what we do in the draft. If we go guard in the draft, which seems likely based off where we're going to draft at, I say go heavy after Walker Kessler, Mark Williams, or one of those guys to get your center in here, but I still don't think you can bet on like a Mark Williams to be your center of the future, your everyday center of the future. I think that just holds off that decision maybe until next year, or maybe you draft a more raw center in this draft if you get that Portland pick, which again is looking less and less likely that we're going to get that Portland pick. But I think that's what you're looking at in that case. I don't think it's a high probability personally that the Bulls do that. Trailblazers are struggling right now. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They are now 2.5 games back of the 8 seed. We'll see what happens there with those injuries, but I don't think it's likely. So there you go on that one. But that's going to do it for today's episode, y'all. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys are amazing. Amazing. And what the way that this show has grown this season, even with how everything has gone on, man, I owe you guys the world, man. But I want to hear from you guys. The Bulls clearly have big decisions coming up here towards the end of the year. Free agency, the draft. What would you do? Your combination of draft and free agency, realistically, right? And look, for the interest of this, let's say, what would you do in the draft and free agency combined if the Bulls don't get lucky and go into the top 4? I want to hear your thoughts down on that. Leave that in the comment section, or you can call in and leave a voicemail on that one. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. Send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.